Her fox ears trembled as she whispered, "You actually like them?" And somehow that mattered more than the whole galaxy. If you love emotional, hopeful HFY Fox Girl stories, subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. The night the city finally went quiet, Callum found himself sitting on a second-hand couch, barefoot, holding a chipped mug and trying not to stare at the girl across from him. Warm lamplight painted soft halos across the walls of his tiny apartment, turning cheap furniture into something almost gentle. She sat on the edge of the cushions, red hair spilling over bare shoulders, fingers pressed to her cheeks like she needed to hold herself together. Above that hair, two tall furred ears stood upright, ginger at the base, white inside, tipped in black. They twitched with every tiny sound, betraying nerves her voice refused to show. Her wide green eyes shimmered between panic and hope as she waited for his verdict on the one thing she'd spent her whole life hiding. He hadn't meant to say it out loud, but he had. "They're cute," he'd blurted, and everything changed. By the time the city went multi-species, Callum had already learned an important life hack. If you kept your head down and your rent paid, the universe usually ignored you. That was fine by him. Let the corporations argue over wormhole tariffs and uplift rights. He had a 12-hour shift at the cargo docks tomorrow and a fridge that hummed louder than his social life. So when his cousin texted, "Hey, can you host a transfer student for a few weeks? You're technically closest to campus," he almost said no. Almost. Then the second message arrived. "She's Vulpine. The boarding house messed up her paperwork. If nobody claims her tonight, she gets reassigned off-world." He'd stared at that message for a long time. Off-world reassignment wasn't a polite phrase. It meant shuffled into some corporation's special program, or shipped back to a planet that hadn't exactly rolled out the welcome mat. Callum wasn't a hero. He was a guy with a narrow bed, a crooked bookshelf, and a talent for ignoring problems that didn't belong to him. But the phrase, "no one else stepped up," kept chewing at him. So he typed, "Send her the address." That was how Rena arrived. The first thing he'd noticed at the door was not the ears, because they weren't there. She wore a dark beanie pulled low, red hair tucked underneath, a plain jacket zipped to her throat. The second thing he noticed was how carefully she held her backpack, like someone might snatch it away. "You're Callum?" she'd asked, voice soft but steady. "Yeah. Come on in." She stepped into the apartment like it might reject her. He watched her catalog everything: the tiny kitchen, the sagging couch, the abstract print he'd picked up from a street vendor because it made the room feel less empty. Her eyes, a startling green that reflected the lamp's glow, lingered on the window and the broad slice of night beyond. "You live alone?" she asked. "Tragically," he said. "You'll have the bedroom. I'll take the couch." Her head snapped toward him. "I can't take your bed." "You can," he said. "And you will, unless you want a very awkward argument in the hallway where the neighbors can rate our hospitality on a scale of 1 to 10. A tiny smile flickered at the edge of her mouth, gone so fast he almost doubted it. That had been 3 hours ago. Now the beanie lay on the coffee table, folded with almost ceremonial care. Her red hair fell loose, framing her face in messy, shining waves. And the ears, those ears, rose confidently from her head, tall and expressive, fur glowing like foxfire under the lamp. He'd only seen Vulpine up close twice before, both times at a distance on the transit line, wrapped in corporate uniforms that screamed, "You do not belong to yourself." Those women had kept their ears hidden under standard-issue hoods. Rena had too until a heat wave rolled in, and the cheap building's climate control coughed and died. "There's a fan somewhere," Callum had muttered, standing on a chair to fiddle uselessly with the vent. "Until then, you're going to cook in that hat." "I'm fine," she'd insisted. "You're sweating through your eyebrows." Vulpine eyebrows, he'd discovered, were even more expressive than human ones. Hers rose in stubborn defiance, then knit with uncertainty. She'd tugged the edge of the beanie lower as if her skull might shrink to fit. Humans stare," she said finally. "And sometimes they take pictures." "Not in here," he'd replied. "In here, you're just Rena." She'd watched him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of that. Then slowly she'd peeled the beanie off. The movement had been reverent. Underneath, her ears sprang upright, freed from confinement. They flicked as the apartment's small noises washed over them. The fridge hum, the distant hover car passing, the faint tick of the wall clock. The fur lay smooth and glossy, ginger and white, fading to dark at the tips. She'd looked at him quickly, braced for the flinch, the wince, the half-second delay of forced politeness. She knew those reactions. He could see it in the tension lining her shoulders. Instead, words slipped out of him with zero warning. "They're cute." Silence fell, stunned and fragile. Rena's fingers flew to her cheeks, pressing in, like in some reflex gesture she couldn't suppress. Her eyes went impossibly wide, pupils dilating, ears going rigid in shock. "You like them?" she whispered. And suddenly he realized this was not a question about aesthetics. It was a question about her. He set the mug down before his nerves turned it into ceramic confetti. "Yeah. I mean, they're part of you, and you're... Look, I'm not great at compliments, but they suit you. They look happy being out." One ear twitched forward, the other flattening sideways in a motion that could have meant anything. Her breath came out in a small, disbelieving laugh. "Nobody's ever said that," she murmured. If nobody had ever said that, what exactly had they been saying instead? Callum leaned back, stretching his legs out, keeping his posture loose on purpose. He'd learned that trick on the docks. Nothing spooked skittish co-workers faster than a man who looked ready to bolt or fight. "Where were you before all this? Before the program?" Rena's gaze drifted to the window again, where the city's lights painted broken constellations on the glass. She turned one ear toward the sound of distant sirens, instinctively tracking. "Transit hub on Selby Station," she said. "They needed bilingual front desk staff. Vulpine pick up languages easily." "Let me guess," he said. "It wasn't the dream job they promised." Her lips twisted. "The dream was having my own room and regular meals. That came true. The rest was long hours, training modules, scripted smiles. And the years? Hoods. Always hoods." She lifted her hands to mimic pulling a fabric edge down. "We're told it makes humans more comfortable." He snorted. "Maybe the wrong humans." Her eyes flicked back to him, cautious amusement stirring. "What kind of human are you, then?" "The kind who owns precisely one fan and 2 mugs," he said. "Huge overachiever." The laugh that escaped her this time was less fragile. Her shoulders loosened, the ears relaxed, angling outward. He watched the way they shifted as her mood changed and realized, stupidly late, that this was a whole extra language nobody had ever bothered to learn. "Hey," he said quietly. "You're safe here, okay? No hoods. No scripts. If you want to keep them hidden outside, that's your call. But in this apartment, the dress code is strictly whatever makes you breathe easier." Rena studied him like she was trying to detect the catch. "Why?" "Because the galaxy already has enough places that tell you how to be," he said. "My living room doesn't need to be another one." He didn't realize that tiny promise would put both of them on a collision course with people who preferred Vulpine hidden. A comfortable quiet settled between them. She shifted closer to the couch's backrest, tucking her bare feet beneath her. The motion sent a subtle swish of movement behind her. He caught the faint suggestion of a tail hidden beneath the throw blanket she'd pulled over her lap earlier. "You really won't take the bedroom?" she asked after a minute. "I snore," he lied. "You'd kick me out after one night." Her ears angled toward him suspiciously. "I have hearing that can track a power relay 2 decks away. I think I would know if you snored." "Then consider this a mercy preemptively delivered," he said. "Besides, the couch and I have a meaningful, complicated relationship. It would be rude to abandon it." That earned him a fully visible smile. It transformed her face, chasing away the careful neutrality she'd worn since she arrived. In its place was something younger, brighter like the girl she might have been without corporate schedules and reassignment threats. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll believe you. For now." The clock ticked on, steady and unbothered. He reached for the remote, then hesitated. Question, he said. Have you ever watched trashy human dramas? Rena blinked. Not in person? Oh, this is a cultural emergency. He turned on the screen, flipping to a late-night channel where actors in ridiculous uniforms shouted about forbidden love in the asteroid mines. Lesson 1. None of this is realistic, and all of it is emotionally educational. She tilted her head, ears following the sound of overacted lines. Do real humans confess their feelings with this much yelling? Only on Tuesdays, he said solemnly. Her laugh blended with the canned studio audiences, warmer, more real. Outside, somewhere across the city, shuttle engines roared and corporate towers drafted new policies about integrated species management. In here, on a faded couch, with one fox girl holding her cheeks in astonished delight because someone had called her ears cute. Humanity's grand contribution to galactic diplomacy came down to something painfully simple. Callum handed her the mug. Drink. Hydration is key to surviving bad television. She accepted it, fingers brushing his for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Her ears flicked once, betraying a pulse of flustered awareness she might not have voiced yet. Thank you, she said. For everything. Hey, he replied, settling in beside her as the drama's theme music swelled. We're just getting started. Neither of them knew that a single offhand compliment about her ears would soon draw attention, from neighbors, classmates, and the very program that thought Vulpine should stay unseen. The next morning began with the unmistakable aroma of something burning. Callum shot upright on the couch, blinking through sleep as a thin curl of smoke drifted from the kitchen. He scrambled to his feet, only to find Rena standing over the toaster with a look of profound betrayal, holding what had once been a slice of bread, but now resembled a carbonized fossil. It attacked me, she announced. It's a toaster, Callum said. It lacks the emotional complexity required for hostility. Rena pointed accusingly at the slot. It hissed. It heated. She narrowed her eyes. Liar. It crackled menacingly. He bit back a laugh. Her ears were angled forward in fierce indignation, sharply triangular battle flags. Okay, he conceded, taking the ruined toast from her hands. Maybe it got a little aggressive. She exhaled, relieved that the machine's crimes were acknowledged. Then, more hesitantly, is breakfast always this dangerous? Only if you challenge the appliances, he said. Some of them take it personally. Her eyes widened as though this was valuable intelligence. I should apologize then? Definitely not. That's how they win. She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with a laugh she tried and failed to contain. The sound transformed the apartment again, lifting something heavy from the air. He reached for the bread bag and popped 2 new slices in. Lesson 2 of human domestic life. We retry until carbs are achieved. She leaned on the counter beside him, watching the toaster with serious concentration, as though she could will it to behave. You don't mind me being here? She asked quietly. There it was. The real question under the burnt toast panic. Callum kept his voice light. If I minded, I wouldn't have accepted your cousin's blackmail. You're fine. But I take up your space, your couch, your morning routines. Rena, my morning routine is accidentally sleep through alarms and then sprint to work. You're adding structure. She blinked. Structure? Yeah, he said. Like reminding me breakfast exists. Her ears relaxed, tipping gently outward. It was becoming easy to read her, too easy. Like watching sunlight shift across a room. The toaster dinged. Rena yelped. Callum caught her by the elbow before she could leap backward into the fridge. Hey, friendly fire, he teased. It lunged. That's gravity. She glared at the toaster with deep suspicion. I will study its methods. He handed her the plate before she could escalate. Eat. I promise the toaster won't seek vengeance. Rena perched on the edge of a chair, half cautious, half curious. She took a careful bite, then another, far more enthusiastic. It's good, she admitted between bites. Warm, not burnt. High praise, he said. We'll frame it. She rolled her eyes, but lightly, fondly, as though she was already becoming comfortable with him in a way that surprised them both. A beat of silence, warm and soft. Then, "You really meant it yesterday?" she asked. "About my ears?" Callum froze mid-sip of coffee. Her tone wasn't casual. It was the kind of question someone might carry for years, suddenly holding it up to the light. "I don't say things I don't mean," he said. "And yes, they're cute." Rena's hands immediately came up to her cheeks again. It was becoming her signature move. "Humans stare at them," she murmured. "Sometimes they laugh." "Well," Callum said, "anyone who laughs at something they don't understand is a walking red flag." She studied him, as if trying to decide whether he truly meant that, or whether kindness was just another script like the ones she'd been trained to perform, before she could ask anything else. A sharp knock rattled the front door. Callum frowned. "Who would—" Rena stiffened instantly, ears up, tail flicking under the blanket she'd wrapped around her waist. "Should I hide?" "You're not contraband," he said. "You don't need to—" The knock came again, louder. "Okay, maybe hide a little," he whispered. She darted behind the half wall dividing the kitchen from the living room, peeking just enough that her ears remained visible, completely defeating the purpose. Callum opened the door halfway. Mrs. Lorne, his neighbor from across the hall, stood there holding a pink plastic container and a level of enthusiasm that should be illegal before noon. "Morning, Callum. I heard voices. Is your cousin visiting? Someone new in the building?" Her eyes sparkled with weaponized curiosity. Callum forced a smile. "Just a friend staying over. Nothing dramatic." "Oh, wonderful. I made muffins. Blueberry-raspberry fusion." She shoved the container toward him. "Share them with your guest." He took the container, nodding. "Thanks, Mrs. Lorne. Also, your AC still broken? I can feel the heat in the hallway. I have a spare portable unit." "We're fine," he said, too quickly. Her gaze sharpened. She could smell secrets the way a bloodhound smelled lunch. "Are you sure you don't need—" Suddenly the lamp inside flickered, and Rena's shadow, ears unmistakably outlined, shifted across the wall. Mrs. Lorne's eyes widened. "Callum," she whispered dramatically, leaning closer, "is there an animal in your apartment?" He coughed. "No." "Are you sure?" "Very. Because I think I saw—" "Definitely not." Mrs. Lorne looked unconvinced, but thankfully not fully alarmed. "Well, all right. I'll be next door if your friend wants a welcome muffin." She retreated, but not without glancing over her shoulder twice. Callum shut the door and exhaled. Rena slipped out from her hiding spot, ears drooping. "Did she see me?" "Not you," he said. "Just ear-shaped physics." Rena flushed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," he assured. "Mrs. Lorne causes herself." That coaxed a small laugh, but her worry didn't vanish. "Callum," she said softly, "people noticing me never ends well." "Here," he said. "Here it won't end badly." Her eyes searched his, as though trying to trust that. Another shift in the air, something quiet, tender. "Do you really believe that?" she murmured. "Yeah," he said. "I believe you deserve to be seen." Her ears twitched, an involuntary, startled motion, and she pressed her hands to them as though trying to hide the reaction. She didn't know that gesture only made her more endearing. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try." She sat beside him on the couch as the morning settled into something calmer. The sunlight warmed her, fur turning the ginger tones almost golden. She watched him with a newfound softness, a trust that was only beginning to take shape. And somewhere in that quiet moment, Callum understood something that should have been obvious. Protecting her wasn't going to be simple. Not with neighbors noticing, not with her program tracking her movements, not with the world expecting Vulpine to stay hidden. But he also knew something else. For reasons he didn't fully understand yet, he wanted to try anyway. Callum returned from work the next day, expecting quiet. Maybe Rena studying the toaster from a respectful tactical distance. Maybe her curled up with a blanket watching more melodramatic asteroid mining romances. He did not expect to find her standing in the middle of the living room, holding a hairdryer like a weapon. "Oh, good," she said breathlessly. "You're home. This thing screams." "It blows air," he said, dropping his bag, loudly. "That's the point." Rena eyed it warily. "Does air need to be that aggressive?" He laughed, stepping forward and gently taking the device from her. "Only when drying hair." "Oh." She looked down, embarrassed, fingers threading nervously through her red waves. "I thought it was malfunctioning." "It's fine." He hesitated, then added, "Your hair looks good, though." Her ears perked. "Good?" "Yeah, like intentionally dramatic. Very hero-landing sound effect." She blinked, processing. "I don't know what that means." "It means it looks cool." A warm flush crept across her cheeks. "Thank you." She didn't seem used to compliments. Or maybe she'd only experienced shallow, performative ones, the kind given by corporate supervisors checking diversity boxes. But real compliments? Those she took like a revelation. He placed the hairdryer on the counter. "So, did you do anything today?" She brightened. "Yes. I explored the campus area like the orientation packet suggested." "Oh." He loosened his jacket, suddenly wary. "How'd that go?" It was... She searched for the right word. Informative. Informative was rarely good. Callum motioned for her to continue. Rena sat on the couch, tucking her feet under her again, something she did only when she was trying to feel small, which wasn't easy with how tall and graceful she was. "People looked at me," she said. Not directly, but sideways, like they were trying not to. "That's still looking?" Callum said. She nodded. Some whispered. 2 boys pointed. One girl laughed and said I should have bought better cosplay ears. "Oof." He winced. "Humans can be idiots." Rena's voice softened. "I didn't correct them. It felt safer." He sat beside her. "That's still a win. You went out. That takes guts." "Maybe," she murmured. "But then, someone from the Vulpine Integration Office found me. They reminded me I'm expected to report weekly, in person." Callum stiffened. "Did they pressure you?" "A little," she admitted. "They said staying with you is a temporary courtesy. They also said I should avoid drawing attention." He sighed. Of course they did. The program wasn't evil, just rigid, overly protective, determined to manage optics more than well-being. "Did they at least treat you with respect?" he asked. Rena hesitated. "They used polite words." "That sounds like a no." A tiny smile touched her lips. "You read me too easily." He shrugged. "Comes with the years." She glanced away, but not before he saw the flicker of warmth his comment earned. For a moment, they sat in gentle quiet, the kind that wasn't empty but comfortable. Then, "I bought something," she said suddenly. "Oh?" he asked. "Something dangerous?" "No kitchen appliances, I hope." "Not dangerous." Her ears angled up in anticipation. "Maybe too cute." He raised a brow. "Show me." She reached for a small shopping bag at her side. From it, she pulled a soft, oversized headband decorated with fox ears. Fake fox ears. He stared at them. She stared at him. Then she blurted, "They were at a kiosk, and I thought, humans wear things to express themselves, so maybe I could blend? Or be fun? Or..." His laughter startled her. "Rena, why would you buy fake ears when you already have perfect real ones?" She clutched the headband to her chest. "Because my real ones scare people. Your real ones are beautiful." Her breath caught, then steadied into something soft, trembling at the edges. "You think so?" she whispered. "But people today..." They didn't. "People today didn't know you," he said. "They saw ears, not Rena." She lowered the headband slowly. So, you don't think I should hide them? I think, he said, choosing his words carefully, you shouldn't decide based on fear. Rena gazed at him. Really gazed, with full attention and something unguarded in her eyes. There's something else, she said. He nodded for her to continue. When the integration officer asked about my housing, they said I could choose a reassignment dorm if this place becomes unsuitable. Callum felt a strange, unwelcome sting in his chest. Do you want that? No. The answer was immediate, startling both of them. She softened her voice. No, I like it here. With you. It feels safe. Something warm unfurled between them, subtle but real. She looked down at her hands. I'm not supposed to get attached. That an official rule? It's an unofficial reality, she said quietly. Humans move on. Vulpine are different. Different how? We bond slowly, deeply, sometimes permanently. He swallowed. Is that a warning? A precaution, she whispered. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. You're not. His voice was low, honest. Not even close. Her ears dipped, unsure. Callum. Before she could say more, a sudden series of loud thumps echoed from the hallway, running footsteps, then a shout. Rena tensed instantly, muscles coiling, ears rising in alarm. What was that? Probably kids, Callum said. But he stood anyway, moving toward the door. Rena followed, close, instinctively drawn to him when startled. He cracked the door open. 2 teenagers sprinted past, one looking over his shoulder laughing. Dude, I told you someone has a fox in that apartment. Callum shut the door sharply. Rena's face paled. They saw me. It was probably nothing, he said quickly, but even he didn't believe it. Rena folded her arms around herself, tail shifting under the blanket. This is how it starts. How what starts? Being noticed, being talked about, being pushed out. Rena, no one is pushing you out. You can't promise that. He stepped closer, gently touching her shoulder. I can promise I won't. That surprised her enough for her ears to drop into a soft, uncertain tilt. You really mean that? She asked. Yeah, he said. I'm not letting a few curious kids or a nosy neighbor chase you out of a place where you finally feel safe. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't want to lose this. You won't. She looked up at him, eyes full of hope she didn't dare claim yet. But it was there, growing, quietly. Callum didn't plan on taking Rena grocery shopping. In fact, he actively tried not to. Crowds, fluorescent lights, unpredictable humans. The whole thing felt like a recipe for stress. But when he returned from work the next day to find Rena pacing the apartment like a fox in a too small den, he knew staying inside wasn't helping. You okay? He asked. She stopped mid-step. I'm restless. He glanced at the window. The city buzzed beyond the glass. Lights, movement, possibility. Want to get out for a bit? Rena froze. Outside? Again? Only if you want to, he said. But you've been cooped up all day. Her ears twitched in indecision. Will humans stare? Probably, he admitted. But you'll have me with you. That seemed to anchor her. She drew in a steady breath. Okay, I'll try. They took the elevator down together. Rena stood close, not touching, but near enough that her presence felt like warmth at his side. When the doors opened to the lobby, she hesitated, then stepped out. Progress. The walk to the corner market was calm at first. Quiet sidewalks. Late afternoon breeze. Rena kept her hood down this time. Her decision, not his. And though people glanced, she didn't shrink away. That guy is staring, she murmured. Callum glanced at the man. He's staring at your hair, not your ears. My hair? It's dramatic, Callum said. You look like a superhero. That earned the tiniest smile. Still not sure what that means. It means you stand out, he said. In a good way. Inside the small grocery store, Rena hovered close to him, eyes darting across shelves packed with unfamiliar labels. She picked up a bag of chips, sniffed it, frowned, and put it back. Then she did the same with a box of cookies, a jar of pasta sauce, a lemon. You know you can choose things without sniffing them, Callum said. She blinked. But how else will I know what they are? By reading the label? She looked at the lemon in her hand. This doesn't have a label. Then I don't know. Use your heart. I do not have citrus-based instincts. He snorted. Clearly. But the levity didn't last long. Halfway down the snack aisle, two college students walked past, one nudging the other, whispering too loudly, "Dude, check out the Fox girl. Are those real?" Rena stiffened. Callum stepped slightly in front of her, blocking their view. "Move along." The boys rolled their eyes and kept walking. Rena tugged gently on his sleeve. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did." Her gaze softened. "They weren't hurting me." "You don't have to be hurt for me to step in." Her ears tipped forward, an involuntary reaction she didn't seem aware of. "Callum." But then her attention shifted. Something else caught her eye. A display of plush animals. Cats, dogs, owls, and one fox. A bright orange, fluffy-tailed fox with comically large ears. She approached it slowly, as though drawn by a magnetic pull. "Do humans give these to each other?" she asked. "Sometimes," Callum said. "Birthdays, celebrations, comfort things too." She brushed her fingers over the fox's soft fur. "A creature that looks like me, but smiling." "You smile," he pointed out. "Not like this." She lifted the plush cautiously, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to want it. "You can get it," he said. "Should I?" "Only if you like it." She held it closer, examining its stitched grin. "I think I do." When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "I never had things like this. On Selby Station, our quarters were efficient. No personal decorations unless approved." "Approved?" he echoed. "Yes. Images, plushes, art. Everything had to be evaluated for appropriateness." He felt his jaw tighten. "That's not living. That's storage." Rena's ears dipped. "It didn't feel wrong until I left. Now I don't know what's normal." "Normal is overrated," Callum said. "Just choose what makes you happy." Her smile slowly returned. She hugged the fox plush to her chest. That was her answer. He added it to the basket. As they turned toward the register, they passed two women chatting over a cart. One glanced up, eyes widening, expression shifting through surprise, curiosity, judgment. "Oh," she said, much too loudly, "a vulpine. You don't see many outside the corporate districts." Rena froze. The woman continued. "Interesting that they're letting them roam so freely now." Callum's patience snapped. "She's not roaming. She's shopping." The woman blinked, startled by the sharpness in his tone. Rena's fingers curled into the plush's fur. He leaned toward her, voice low. "You okay?" "Yes," she whispered. "But I wish people didn't treat me like a spectacle." "They shouldn't," he said. "And I'm sorry they do. It's not your fault. It feels like my responsibility anyway." Her eyes softened at that. Too much almost. Like his protectiveness meant something deeper to her. At the register, the cashier, a bored teen, barely looked up. "Cute ears," she said casually. Rena jolted. "Cute?" The cashier shrugged. "Yeah, I like the color fade at the tips. If I had those, I'd never hide them." Callum watched Rena's expression transform again. Shock, hope, shy pride. "Thank you," she whispered. They left the store with a small bag of groceries and one fox plush sticking out of the top. Rena carried it like a treasure. Halfway back to the apartment, she spoke softly. "That cashier didn't treat me like something strange." "No," Callum agreed. She treated you like a person. Rena's steps slowed. I liked that. The afternoon light caught in her hair, making it glow. The city noise buzzed around them. Cars, chatter, distant sirens. But she seemed calm, steadier than earlier, almost confident. Callum, she said quietly. Yeah? Thank you for taking me out, even when you didn't have to. He nudged her shoulder. Hey, you handled it. I'm just the guy holding the grocery bag. She laughed gently. No, you make everything feel less overwhelming. He didn't respond right away, because there was something in her voice, something delicate, warm, building. Something like trust, and maybe something more. Callum woke in the middle of the night to a sound he didn't recognize. Soft footsteps, light but quick, moving across the apartment floor with restless pacing. Rena, he called, pushing himself up on the couch. She froze near the window, silhouetted by the neon glow outside. Her fox ears were high, tense. Her tail, usually a calm, hidden curl, lashed once beneath the oversized sleep shirt she'd borrowed. Her breath came shallow, uneven. It's nothing, she whispered. Go back to sleep. Rena. He swung his legs over the side of the couch. Come here. She didn't move. In the dim light, he saw the tremble in her hands. He approached slowly, giving her space, not cornering her. What's wrong? She swallowed hard. There was a message. A message? She nodded, but didn't turn around. From the integration office. They said they reviewed today's surveillance footage. Cold dread slid into his stomach. Footage of what? Of me? Her voice cracked. Out in public, ears uncovered. He clenched his fists. Are you kidding me? They're monitoring that closely? It's standard, she murmured. Vulpine are considered high-visibility assets. He stepped closer. Rena, look at me. She turned slowly. Her eyes shimmered in the low light, fear mixed with something deeper, something she'd been trying not to feel. They said I violated protocol, she whispered. That drawing attention might jeopardize the program's progress. That staying with an unsupervised human increases the risk. So what? Callum said. They want to move you? Yes. Her lip trembled. They requested I report for relocation tomorrow morning. He stared at her, stunned. They can't just. They can, she said. I signed the enrollment papers. They own the placement terms. No. He shook his head. You're not an object. To them, she said quietly, I am. A symbol, a representative species, a potential liability. So tell them no. I can't. Why not? Because if I refuse, they can send me back off-world. She wrapped her arms around herself. You know what that means. He did. Mandatory reassignment. Corporate contract work. No choice, no autonomy. A life small and controlled. He stepped close enough to touch her, but didn't. Not yet. You're not going anywhere you don't want to. She forced a bitter laugh. You can't fix this by being stubborn. Watch me. Her ears flicked with startled emotion, but then she shook her head. Callum, I don't want you getting involved. Well, too late. I live involved now. You don't understand the consequences. Explain them. She took a breath, unsteady, pained. If I defy them, they'll come here. They'll interview you. They'll judge whether you're appropriate company. He raised a brow. I am extremely appropriate. Callum. She stepped toward him, voice trembling. They could classify you as an influence risk. That would put you on a watch list. It could affect your job. So what? He said. You matter more. She flinched at that. Don't say things like that. Why not? Because... Her voice cracked. Because I don't know how to handle it. Finally, he touched her shoulder. Light, steady, human. She closed her eyes at the contact, just for a heartbeat. But the way her ears lowered, softening, betrayed how much she needed grounding. "What did you say back to them?" he asked gently. "Nothing," she whispered. I didn't respond. He exhaled in relief. "Good. Then we still have time." "For what?" "To figure out what you want, not what they want." She looked up at him, eyes huge and uncertain. "What if what I want is impossible?" "Try me." Another breath, fragile and trembling. "I want to stay." "Then stay." "It's not that simple." "It is to me." She stepped back as if the intensity of his conviction physically pushed her. "Callum, if they come here tomorrow, then I'll answer the door. That's not what scares me." Her voice softened to a trembling whisper. "What scares me is that they'll make me leave. And I finally feel like I'm allowed to exist without hiding." He reached for her gently. "Rena, you do exist without hiding. Here, with me. You don't have to earn that." She shuddered. Then, a sharp chime split the room. Her datapad. Another message. Rena's breath went uneven again as she lifted it. The screen glowed cold blue across her face. "Mandatory compliance review. Arrival expected at 900. Non-negotiable." Callum swore under his breath. "They're pushing hard." "They always do," she said. "Vulpine autonomy is complicated." "Not anymore," he muttered. "Not while you're with me." She stared at him, ears trembling. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you deserve agency. Because you deserve a life that's yours." His voice softened. "Because you looked terrified in my living room, and all I wanted to do was make you feel safe again." Her throat tightened. "No one has ever said that to me." "Then they've been idiots." Her laugh broke on a fragile edge before fading into something raw. "You don't understand what happens tomorrow if I go," she whispered. "They'll put me in a monitored dorm. Curfews, uniforms, no visits without approval. And if they think I'm too emotionally influenced by a human, they'll separate us permanently." Emotion surged through him, protective, fierce, unyielding. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Rena took a trembling breath. "I want you to tell me I'm allowed to stay," she whispered. "Even if they try to take me?" Callum didn't hesitate. "You're allowed to stay." Her breath hitched, no, caught, soft and stunned, her hands lifting to her lips. "Callum." "And if they show up tomorrow," he said, stepping closer, "I'm not letting them take you without a fight. A polite, bureaucratic fight. But a fight." She tried to smile, and failed. Her composure crumbled. Then she leaned forward, forehead resting lightly against his chest, not quite an embrace, but close. Close enough that he could feel her shake. He lifted a hand, hovering before finally placing it over her back, slow and gentle. "You're not alone," he murmured. Her ears brushed against him, warm, soft, trembling. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." A sudden pounding at the door cut through the moment. Loud, urgent, unmistakably official. Rena froze. Callum's pulse snapped into high alert. "Callum," she breathed, voice breaking. "They're early." The pounding at the door came again, harder this time, rattling the frame. Rena's ears flattened, her breath sharp and quick. Callum stepped instinctively in front of her, shielding her from view of the peephole. Another voice joined the knocking, calm, official, far too confident. "Vulpine Integration Office. We need to speak with Rena Varys regarding mandatory relocation." Callum muttered, "Of course they do." Rena's fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. "I didn't think they'd come tonight." He glanced back at her. "It's okay. I've got this. You don't have to. I want to." He reached for the knob. But before he opened the door, he whispered, "Stay behind me. And whatever they say, you're not alone in this." She nodded, unsteady but resolute. Callum cracked the door open only a fraction. Two officers stood in the hallway, a man with a polished tablet and a woman with the kind of sharp posture that suggested too many years of following procedure without questioning it. Their uniforms bore the silver insignia of the integration office. Orderly, pristine, cold. "Callum Hayes?" the woman asked. "That's me," he said. "What's going on?" "We have instructions to escort Rena Veris to temporary housing for compliance review," the man said, glancing at his tablet. "She has not responded to our communications." "I read the messages," Callum said flatly. "They said tomorrow morning. It's not tomorrow morning." The woman's expression didn't change. "We advanced the timeline." "Why?" "That information is internal." He narrowed his eyes. "Right. And you expect me to trust that?" "We expect you not to interfere." Rena stepped closer behind him, not enough to be seen, but enough that he felt her presence press into the space between his shoulder blades. He spoke before either officer could lean to the side. "She's not going with you tonight," Callum said. "She's exhausted, she's overwhelmed, and your message didn't say anything about a midnight extraction." "This is not an extraction," the woman snapped. "It is a compliance procedure." "Same thing," he said. "Different marketing." The officers exchanged a look, annoyance, calculation. "Mr. Hayes," the man began, "as her temporary sponsor, you are obligated to facilitate direct communication." "Funny," Callum cut in. "I wasn't told I'd be expected to hand her over like a piece of misdelivered mail." The woman's jaw tightened. "Rena Veris is not property, but she is part of a vulnerable, high-profile species undergoing integration. Vulpine emotional patterns require structure." Callum leaned forward. "Maybe they require kindness instead." The woman bristled, caught off guard. He took the opening. "And maybe they need someone to ask what Rena wants." "You ever tried that before? Asking?" The hallway went silent. The man lowered his tablet slightly, uncertainty flickering in his face. The woman did not waver. "Her wants," she said coldly, "cannot supersede protocol." "Well, they do in my apartment." "Mr. Hayes, you're obstructing official—" He stepped further into the doorway, blocking her attempt to see past him. "Come back in the morning," he said firmly. "You follow your rules? Great. Then follow the one you already gave her." The woman inhaled sharply, preparing a rebuttal, but her partner touched her arm subtly, a quiet signal that she reluctantly acknowledged. "Fine," she said stiffly. "But she is to report at 0900 without fail." Callum nodded once. "And you won't show up early again." She hesitated, then nodded back. They turned and walked down the hallway, shoes clicking in irritated unison. As soon as they disappeared around the corner, Callum shut the door and sagged back against it. For a moment, neither he nor Rena said anything. Then she exhaled, a shaking, half-sobbed breath, and rushed to his side. "That was reckless," she whispered. "Probably. They could have penalized you. They didn't. They still could. They won't." She looked up at him, ears trembling, eyes wide with something tangled between fear and awe. "What you did. Humans don't usually challenge officials like that." "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm not letting anyone bulldoze you." Her voice went soft, dangerously soft. "Why?" "Because you deserve it. Because someone should have stood up for you years ago. Because you looked terrified, and I wanted to shield you from everything hurting you. Because I care about you more than I know how to say." He couldn't voice any of those, so he said the truest version that wouldn't break them both open. "Because it mattered to you," he murmured. "So it mattered to me." She stared at him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Surprise, gratitude, something brighter, something fragile. Then she stepped closer, and closer still. Her hand lifted, hesitated, and gently touched his arm. It was barely a touch. Featherlight, a question, not a claim. "Callum," she whispered. "When you spoke to them, I felt—" A sudden knock made them both flinch. Softer this time, hurried, almost apologetic. "Oh no," Callum groaned. "Not again." But when he opened the door, a crack, it wasn't the officers. It was Mrs. Lorne from across the hall in pajamas, holding her cat like a loaf of judgmental bread. "I heard yelling," she whispered conspiratorially. "Is everything okay?" Callum forced a smile. "Just a minor misunderstanding." Rena peeked out from behind him by instinct, ears visible. Mrs. Lorne gasped. "Oh, those are adorable." Rena froze. Callum blinked. Mrs. Lorne leaned closer, delighted. "Are those natural? The color gradient is stunning. My granddaughter would go wild for a pair like that." Rena's eyes widened, stunned into silence. Callum cleared his throat. "Mrs. Lorne, thank you, but it's late." "Oh," she waved a hand. "Of course, just checking." Then to Rena, "If anyone gives you trouble, dear, you just come to me. I'll scare them off." And she vanished into her apartment with theatrical speed. Callum slowly closed the door. Rena stared at him. "That was unexpected," she whispered. "Yeah," Callum said. "She's chaotic good." Rena's ears rose, unsure whether to be startled or charmed. And then, slowly, she smiled. Callum felt something ease inside him, something that had been tight since the moment her datapad first chimed. "Callum," she said softly, "when you stood up for me tonight, I felt like my life finally belonged to me, even just for a moment." He stepped toward her. "It does belong to you." Her voice dropped to something barely audible. "And I want to keep choosing you in it." He stopped breathing entirely, but before he could respond, her datapad chimed again, a new message. Rena picked it up with trembling hands. The screen lit her face. Her eyes widened. Her ears shot straight up. "Callum," she whispered. "This one isn't from the integration office." "Who's it from?" Her voice shook. "It's from the Vulpine Embassy." She looked up at him, heart pounding. "They know I'm here." Rena stared at the glowing message, as though it might dissolve if she blinked. Callum stepped beside her, reading the words over her shoulder. "Vulpine Embassy notice. We have been informed of your potential relocation. Your status requires review. A representative will arrive tomorrow to determine next steps. Do not engage with human agencies until then." Callum exhaled slowly. "Okay. That sounds intense." Rena's ears angled back, uncertainty rippling through her posture. "The embassy doesn't contact individuals casually. A representative means something is wrong." "Or," Callum countered, "it means they don't like the integration office pushing you around." "But why now?" she whispered. "Why me?" He looked at her gently. "Maybe because you matter. Maybe because someone finally noticed the way you're being treated." But she wasn't convinced. Her tail shifted beneath the hem of her shirt, agitated, uncertain. "What should I do?" she asked. "What do you want to do?" he corrected. She hesitated. "I want to stay here. With you. At least until I understand what my life is allowed to be." He touched her arm, steady and warm. "Then that's our starting point." She lifted her eyes to his, green, searching, vulnerable. "What if the embassy is worse?" she asked. "What if they want to take me back to the home world? I barely remember it." "If they try," he said quietly, "we'll deal with it." "We?" Her voice trembled. "Yeah," he said. "We." Her breath, caught, soft and startled. But before she could answer, her datapad chimed again. This time, an image appeared. A Vulpine sigil, gold and white, followed by a brief message. "Representative arriving early. Prepare for evaluation." Rena's shoulders tensed. "Early? Again? Why is everyone coming early?" "You attract punctual people," Callum joked. But it didn't land. She wrapped her arms around herself, tail tightening at her legs. "It's like the whole galaxy is standing at the door," she whispered. "Well," he said, stepping in front of her with a soft, crooked smile. "Good thing I'm the one who answers it." Her ears flicked. And for a moment, despite everything, she almost smiled. A knock sounded, but it wasn't demanding like the integration officers. It was gentle, precise. 3 taps, spaced evenly. Rena stiffened. That's embassy cadence. Callum frowned. They have a knock cadence? Yes, she whispered. It signals formality. He glanced toward the door. Okay, let's meet them. She grabbed his wrist subconsciously, light, instinctual. Callum, please don't say anything too human. They value decorum. What's too human? Anything you've said in the past 48 hours. Oh. But she didn't let go of him. He placed his free hand over hers. Rena, I'm right here. Another soft knock. This time, he opened the door. Standing in the hallway was a Vulpine woman, tall, dignified, her furred ears draped in silver chains that shimmered with each breath. She wore ceremonial robes flowing like liquid starlight. Her eyes, deep amber, rested not on Callum, but directly on Rena. Rena Varys, she said, voice melodic, yet clipped. I am Envoy Sarala, appointed to your case. Rena bowed slightly, old instinct. Envoy, I didn't expect. You were not meant to, Sarala replied. Your situation escalated. She stepped forward with surprising grace. May I enter? Callum blinked. Yes, sure. The apartment is diplomatically humble. Rena closed her eyes. Callum. Sarala entered without judgment, though her gaze swept the apartment with the intensity of someone cataloging every detail. Her eyes landed on the couch blankets, the shared grocery bag still on the counter, the fox plush peeking out. That, Sarala said softly, was purchased today. Rena swallowed. Yes. For comfort? Yes. Sarala nodded once, something unreadable passing through her expression. Then she turned to Callum. You stood between Rena and the integration officers. It wasn't a question. Yes, he said. You challenged their authority. Someone had to. She studied him for a long moment. Most humans would not. Most humans don't know Rena. Rena's ears twitched sharply, surprised by how easily he said it. Sarala's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. Your actions have created a political complication. Callum folded his arms. You're welcome? Rena made a tiny distressed sound. But Sarala didn't reprimand him. Instead, she stepped closer to Rena. You were scheduled for relocation, she said. Not by our directive? I know, Rena whispered. You do not wish to go. I don't. And you fear being returned to the homeworld. Rena closed her eyes. I don't even know who I am there. Sarala reached out, gently brushing a clawed fingertip along the side of Rena's ear, a gesture that seemed both formal and deeply personal. You are Vulpine, Sarala murmured. But you are also something else. Something not yet defined. Rena's voice trembled. I want a chance to define it. And this human, Sarala said, turning toward Callum again, is involved in your definition? Rena looked at him. No fear, just fragile truth. Yes, she said. The word hung in the air. Sarala considered them both, then exhaled slowly. Very well. I will state my evaluation plainly. The integration office acted prematurely. Their method lacks cultural sensitivity. And Rena Varys is entitled to a transitional period of self-determination. Callum blinked. Meaning, Sarala said. She stays here. Rena gasped. Callum's heart jolted. Sarala lifted a hand. However, there are conditions. Rena steadied herself. What conditions? 1. You will meet with me weekly so I may monitor your adjustment. Rena nodded eagerly. Yes. 2. You are free to remain with this human. She eyed Callum. As long as the arrangement is mutually chosen and not coercive. Rena flushed. Coercive? He can barely convince the toaster to cooperate. That is accurate, Callum admitted. Sarala pressed on. And finally, should you choose to stay with him long term, the embassy will recognize the bond. Rena froze. Bond? Sarala tilted her head. Is that not what you seek? Heat rose to Rena's cheeks, her ears arching in a startled arc. Envoy, I don't, this is... Callum stepped in gently. Whatever it means. She can think about it. No pressure. Sarala looked at him with something like approval. Good. You understand the pace she requires? Rena pressed a hand to her heart, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say, Sarala murmured, placing a warm hand against Rena's cheek, that you will choose your life on your own terms. Rena's voice wavered. I'll try. Sarala nodded. Then my work here is done. She turned toward the door, but paused. Looking back, she offered a rare, small smile. Your ears truly are beautiful, Rena Varys. Do not hide them in this place. Rena's breath trembled, astonished, moved. Callum watched her glow with it. When Sarala was gone and the door clicked shut, Rena turned to him slowly, eyes shining. She said I could stay. She did. And she recognized. She couldn't finish the sentence. Callum stepped closer. So, he said softly, what do you want to do now? Rena lifted her hands to her ears. No shame, no fear, just wonder. Then she looked up at him. I want, she whispered, to keep choosing this. The silence after Sarala's departure felt different. No longer heavy but full, like the apartment itself had taken a deep breath and finally exhaled. Rena stood in the middle of the living room, touch lingering on her ears as though rediscovering them, rediscovering herself. Callum leaned against the back of the couch, unsure whether to speak, unsure whether breaking the moment would be a crime. Rena turned to him slowly, the glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. It feels unreal, she whispered. I thought everything would end tonight. Instead, it opened. He took a step forward. You opened it. You stood your ground. I didn't, she said softly. Not alone. Her gaze drifted around the apartment, the crooked bookshelf, the cluttered coffee table, the half-folded blanket, the fox plush resting against a cushion like it had claimed territory. This place, it's messy and small and noisy, and you have too many mismatched mugs. Rude, he said. Her ears flicked with amusement. But it's the first place I've lived where I felt wanted. He moved closer, cautiously. Rena. She held up a hand, not to stop him, but to steady herself. Let me say this. If I don't now, I won't be brave enough later. He nodded, waiting. When I was assigned to that station, she said, there were rules for everything. How to speak, how to dress, how to behave when humans looked at me for too long. I thought that was normal. I thought hiding was the price of acceptance. She touched her ears again, smoothing the fur unconsciously. I didn't know there were places I could exist without shrinking. Callum's voice softened. You make the space bigger just by being in it. Her breath hitched, catching on emotion this time, not fear. You say things humans don't usually say. I say things I mean. She smiled weakly. That's what scares me. Why? Because it makes me hopeful. She took a trembling breath. And hope is dangerous when you've never had control. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly against her hand. She didn't pull away. You have control now, he said. Not because the embassy allowed it, because you claimed it. She closed her eyes, steadying her heartbeat, letting his words settle like warmth under her skin. Eventually, she spoke again. What about tomorrow? What happens then? Tomorrow, he said. We make breakfast. You argue with the toaster. We go to your first meeting with Sarala. We live our lives. She laughed, soft, disbelieving. As if nothing happened? No, he said. As if everything changed. Her expression melted into something tender, something raw, something full of trust that had taken root over the last few days and refused to let go. He lifted his other hand, hesitating for a moment before brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The ear twitched. She flushed. "Callum," she whispered, leaning slightly into his touch, instinct overriding caution. But then she stepped back, heart pounding. "I need a minute," she said, cheeks warm. "Just a moment to feel everything." He nodded, offering space without retreating. "Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere." She drifted toward the window, looking out over the city. Cars drifted in lines of light below. Buildings hummed with distant life. She pressed a hand to the glass, as though the world beyond had suddenly become reachable. "When I was little," she said, still facing the city, "I used to imagine what freedom felt like. Not the structured kind, real freedom. Wind on my ears, choices that belonged to me, a home I picked, people I trusted." She turned around. "I didn't know it would feel like this." He met her eyes. "Good?" "Good," she whispered, voice shaking. "Too good." He walked to her side, standing just close enough that their arms nearly touched. "No such thing," he said quietly. She tilted her head toward him, her ears brushing his shoulder by accident. She froze, then didn't move away. "Callum, can I ask something? Anything? Why didn't you send me away that first night, when you saw my ears?" He smiled. "Because they were cute." She groaned softly, covering her face. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." "And you're not intimidated or uncomfortable?" "Rena." He slid a hand gently to her shoulder, turning her to face him fully. "You're a person, not a problem." Her lips parted, a small breath escaping, surprise mixing with gratitude, mixing with something she didn't have a name for yet. Then the fox plush toppled off the couch with a soft thump. Rena startled, whipping around as if the building was collapsing. Callum burst into laughter. "Relax. That's just your emotional support fox." She threw the nearest pillow at him. He caught it with one hand, smug. "Nice aim." She tried to hold in a smile, failed miserably. "You're insufferable," she declared, but her voice was warm. He flopped down onto the couch, patting the seat beside him. "Come on. You need at least one moment tonight where you're not thinking about agencies or embassies or politics." She hesitated, then joined him, sitting close enough that their knees brushed. The contact made her ears twitch, but she didn't pull away. The fox plush was rescued and placed in her lap like a small guardian. Callum grabbed the remote. "More asteroid mining romance?" Rena tilted her head, genuinely, considering. "Yes, the yelling is oddly healing." He snorted. "Therapeutic shouting, a classic." They settled into the couch together, the glow of the holoscreen washing over them. Rena leaned just slightly against his side, not touching fully, but leaning, trusting, choosing. And Callum didn't move, didn't breathe too loudly, didn't dare disrupt the fragile perfection of the moment. Outside, the city pulsed with 1,000 lives. Inside, in one small apartment built of mismatched furniture and unexpected sanctuary, 2 lives began weaving into something new. Not defined, not labeled, but real. And Rena's ears, unhidden, unashamed, stood proud. The morning came gentler than anyone expected. Soft light spilled through the blinds, painting Rena in gold where she slept curled on the far end of the couch. Fox plush tucked under one arm, her tail peeking from beneath the blanket in a relaxed curl. Her ears twitched once, lazily, as though chasing a dream. Callum watched her for a moment from the kitchen doorway, a quiet smile tugging at his mouth. She had fallen asleep during the final episode of the asteroid mining drama, insisting she wasn't tired right before dozing off with her head on his shoulder. He hadn't moved for almost an hour, afraid to disturb the peace she finally found. He brewed coffee silently, glancing over every few seconds to make sure she was still resting, still safe. When the aroma reached her, her nose twitched adorably before her eyes fluttered open. Morning? She murmured, voice soft and raspy from sleep. Morning, he replied. She sat up slowly, one ear crooked sideways until she smoothed it into place. Did I fall asleep with you? Only a little. She groaned, burying her face in the plush. That's embarrassing. Nah, I'm honored. You're impossible, she mumbled into the plush. He set a mug of tea, her preference, on the table beside her. First official morning as a semi-recognized autonomous Vulpine citizen. How's it feel? She blinked at the steam rising from the cup, unsure. Strange, light, like I forgot to carry something heavy. That's good. It's scary, too, she added more quietly. He sat beside her. What part? All of it. She spread her fingers. Freedom is big, messy. The idea that I can stay here if I want. She bit her lip. It feels like a future I'm not trained for. He nudged her knee gently. Good thing I'm an expert in having no idea what I'm doing. I'll guide you through it. She laughed, barely. Terrifying. Accurate. A quiet moment passed, warm and grounding. Rena sipped her tea, watching the city wake through the window. The streets below buzzed with early commuters, neon signs flickered off one by one, and the world kept turning. What happens next? She asked. Well, Callum said, today you meet with Sarala again. She'll mark you as stable and self-directed, which you are. Rena let out a breath. I hope so. You are. You told an embassy envoy what you wanted. That's huge. Her tail flicked at the reminder, betraying pride she didn't voice. And after that, he continued, you come back here. We make dinner, watch another terrible drama, argue about kitchen appliances. Her lips curved. And I get to choose that. Every step, he said. No one chooses for you anymore. She blinked rapidly, overwhelmed again, though in a softer way now. It still feels fragile, like it could be taken back. If anyone tries, he said, they'll answer to me. Her breath hitched, not in panic, but with that vulnerable tenderness she only showed when she forgot to guard herself. You don't have to keep protecting me. I know, he said. Doesn't change that I want to. She set the plush down and looked at him fully. Callum. She hesitated, tail slowly curling around her legs. I don't know what I'm becoming. Not yet. But I know this. She swallowed. You make the world feel wider instead of smaller. He smiled softly. And you make mine brighter. Her cheeks flushed a warm rose. She tucked a lock of hair behind her ear, an instinctive gesture that lifted the ear proudly into full view. For once, she didn't try to hide it. Do you... She paused, ears tilting shyly. Do you think it's okay if I stay here? Longer than what the program expects? He frowned lightly. Why would that not be okay? Because it feels like choosing beyond safety, she whispered. Choosing connection. Callum's heart thudded. It's more than okay, he said. If you want to stay, stay, as long as you want. Her ears perked, trembling with a quiet joy. You mean it. More than anything I've said so far. She looked down at her hands. And if, someday, I decide I want something more, something deeper, would that be allowed too? His breath caught. Rena, anything you want for your life is allowed. She inhaled slowly, letting the weight of that truth settle through her bones. When she looked back up, her eyes were bright, fear and hope in equal measure, woven into something beautiful. I'm not ready yet, she said softly, but I'm not scared of the idea anymore. That's enough, he murmured. More than enough. A chime sounded from her datapad, Sarala confirming the morning meeting. Rena stood, smoothing her shirt, tail lifting with new confidence. I should go get ready. Take your time, he said. I'll walk you there. You will? Yeah, you're not facing the galaxy alone. She paused, ears rising in gentle surprise. I like the sound of that. As she headed to the bathroom to prepare, Callum gathered his things lazily, giving her space. Yet even with a door between them, the warmth she carried remained in the room, bright and soft and quietly revolutionary. When Rena emerged, hair brushed, ears unhidden, posture steady, Callum felt something settle inside him. She wasn't the same girl who had arrived at his door hiding beneath a beanie. And he wasn't the same man who once kept his world safely small. They stepped into the hallway together. Rena hesitated, one last, instinctive check for danger, then relaxed when she saw only the everyday quiet of the building. "Ready?" Callum asked. She nodded, ready to choose. They walked side by side into the morning light, the city opening before them like a future full of unmade decisions, hers to shape, his to support, both of them stepping into something larger than either had expected. Not a romance yet, not certainty, not destiny. Something better, a beginning. If you enjoyed Rena's journey and want more heartfelt HFY Fox Girl stories, subscribe for the next adventure.